Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Get Your Ass Up and Move Fitness and Nutrition Podcast. I am your host, peta-gay Barrett with Barrett Fitness Enterprises. And on this podcast, we discuss fitness, nutrition, overall health, and overall well-being. So we have another beautiful face with us today, another smart, educated health and fitness professional. Her name is Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you, and I am sure a topic of discussion most people can probably relate to at some point in their life on, different scales, because today Sabrina will be taking us through her 100-pound holistic weight loss story and journey. Right, Sabrina?
Yeah, it's been quite the process.
Well, that's what we're here for. Thank you for the opportunity to actually speak with you and, share your story. And I'm sure there's one woman in particular, men as well, but, we're girls and we believe in girl power, right? Man power too, but, girl power. So hopefully we can inspire, one person who may be going through a similar situation or struggling with weight loss. And, my thing is, Sabrina, if we touch one person, then my mission is accomplished. So where exactly are you calling us from today?
I'm in Salem, Massachusetts, so over here on the East Coast of America. But obviously I'm not from here.
Right. So there's an accent. I'm hearing this British thing going on there. Where are you from?
It's a British thing. I am from the United Kingdom, small town just outside of London is where I grew up. And my husband and I have been here in the States now 11 years, which is insanity to think about. The time has gone by so fast. It's crazy.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Sabrina. I mean, before we get into, your weight loss story and your weight loss journey, because I'm sure you have an amazing story for us today. Tell us a little bit about Sabrina. I know you have a health coaching business. Like you say, you grew up in Great Britain. Tell us a little bit more about Sabrina.
Yeah, so I actually was born in Africa. My mother is half Nigerian, half Lebanese. So I was born in Nigeria, lived there till I was 5 years old. And then as part of the Commonwealth ability to travel between countries, we moved to the UK, and I grew up in the United Kingdom. But it really is, I look back on childhood and growing up and finding my voice and my place in the world as a woman of color. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, there was stuff. Obviously the UK has its own, history when it comes to race and all of that kind of stuff. So growing up, always feeling very other. I grew up in a very affluent white neighborhood, but legit was the Black family that lived on the wrong side of the tracks, so it wasn't very inclusive. There was a preconception of where my life was going, what it should be. And I often think to myself that my husband coming into my life saved my life in a lot of ways. We met when we were 17 years old, and us being together kind of carved a different path for ourselves, which has culminated but really just started a new path of our story in when we moved to the US here 11 years ago. And so being a two-time immigrant is a very unique perspective, I think, that I have in the world and my place in it. And it's just been, it continues to be an evolving story, which I'm really grateful for, because I constantly get the ability to grow into a new version of myself, which is, it's exciting.
Where did this all start for you? At what point do you find yourself in that category of, I would imagine, maybe being overweight or wanting to lose weight or having the need to lose weight? And where did that start for you? And part of what I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine you had some struggles growing up, being multiracial and, being on the other side of the train tracks, like you put it. Where did that journey all started for you?
Yeah. again, growing up in a community where nobody really looked like me or looked like my family, I never felt like I really fit. You know, I was always bigger than everybody else just because of my kind of natural shape given to me by my culture, as well as like our food was different, and so, you know, how I carried weight was different. And so I think a lot of my stuff, you know, we've all got stuff,
mental stuff, yes,
stuff.
and mental stuff.
A lot of that comes from a place of not feeling like I belonged, not feeling like I fit in, not feeling like I was never enough, always aspiring to be something different, to look like the people that I was surrounded by, so that I didn't stick out. And so, yeah, my kind of personal journey with myself started a long time ago. I think my first memories of feeling like I didn't fit about 8-9 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then kind of going into the high school system in the UK, that starts for us at 11, which coincided with that being when I started my menstrual cycle too at 11 years old. So there was a lot of change and a lot of, that's not normal because that was very young, you know.
Yeah. Hormones are kicking in and just changes going on physiologically. Then you're struggling with the changes that's going on mentally. Wow.
It was a lot. Yeah. So kind of, I think my perception of myself and so what I looked like was damaged from a really early kind of age, which came to a head when I met who is now my husband. We were 17 and I went to university, and you know, people talk about like the freshman 15. I gained 100 pounds. I gained 100 pounds.
Over what time frame?
It was about, I don't know, maybe 18 months, something like that. So it was a short frame of time. And so, as you can imagine, that in itself, and I look back to that time and I think, how can this be true? But honestly, I didn't notice that it was happening.
Right.
I noticed that like clothes were getting a little bit tighter and I felt a little bit not as great, because I used to be very athletic when I was younger in school. So not being as active and all that, I felt different, but I didn't realize how dramatic it was until one day my housemate, she went to a Weight Watchers meeting because she really wanted to lose weight herself, and she begged and pleaded for me to go with her as moral support. And I was like, of course, I'll come with you. And being there, they kind of bullied me really to get on the scale myself. And I got on the scale and I looked down at the number, which was 256 pounds.
So how old were you at this point?
20.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
19 going on 20.
Right. So maybe your first and second year in college.
Yes. So I looked at the scale and I was like, what? You know? And we do it in stones and pounds, in the stones and ounces in the UK. So that was like 18, 19 stone, a dress size 18 plus at that point.
Wow.
And I had this moment where I was just like, oh my Lord, like, no, this cannot be, this cannot stand. And so that kind of kicked off my focus on losing that weight. But with that, it very much came from a place of desperation. It very much came from a place of disgust, of this, like, just the space of this cannot be where I am. It's so damaged my self-perception. And so, as you can imagine, from that mindset, that mentality, it was never gonna go well.
Right. Because you had already had these struggles going on, and then you coupled it with, oh my God, I'm already struggling with whatever. And then you add weight on it, right? That's just that takes it to a whole nother level. So, I mean, was weight an issue? Not with you. Obviously, at some point you realized something was different because of, you know, the kids around you and, you know, all of that. But like in your home, did your parents, you know, stress like, you know, healthy eating habits and be careful what you eat because you may gain weight? Or, you know, was that even a conversation for you growing up?
No. And it was actually a very kind of contradictory environment. I come from, like I said, an African household. So food plays a massive part in culture, in everything.
Every, you know, social aspect of your life, really.
Yeah, it's everything. And not the healthiest foods either, you know? And so very much in my household, it had that, you know, very cultural approach to food, which was abundance, a lot, eat a lot,
Right,
eat a
all
lot.
the time. Yeah. Too
But then
skinny
at the
type of
same,
thing.
yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, there was the messaging of, you have to look a particular way. You have to eat, but
But
not
not be obese
flat.
or overweight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have
Mhm.
to make sure that you're not skinny, but there
You
was a
can't
lot.
be fat.
Yeah, there's a lot of that weird kind of messaging where it's like, eat, 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 but don't get fat. And
Yeah.
if you're too thin, then you haven't eaten enough because you need to have the gut.
There's
And
something wrong with you.
it was a lot, you know, to kind
So
of,
it's
yeah.
crazy that you say that because I've never really looked at it like that. And I think, and I guess a woman of, you know, African descent, I am obviously a Black woman. I think I was kind of raised that way. And
It's
then the
weird that
more
it
I think
doesn't even
about,
show.
I'm sorry?
No, I was weird. It's weird because when you're in it just, it's normal. You don't
Yeah.
even think anything about it.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. And I think, I guess I can say this as well as Black people, that's kind of a thing with us, right? Like we eat every, you know, so get around our friends and our family and the cookouts and the this and that, you know, but if you're skinny, there is a problem. If you're over obese, there is a problem. But what is okay,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Slim waist and big butt and nice boobs, like you can't, you know, make yourself look like that. So
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. So you obviously lost 100 pounds, right? And so what did you, well, first, where did the inspiration come from? Would you say that was the inspiration, that moment when you look on the scale, or you've had some struggles up and down and one day you just, you know, something inspired you? Where did you get that inspiration to actually lose 100 pounds?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. So the original inspiration was definitely that, seeing the number on the scale that day and deciding, no, that wasn't going to be the one. But it took me 4 years to lose that weight because it was a very tumultuous process. It threw up a lot of negative things in my life. So I actually reached my goal weight. And then there was a lot of up, down, up, down, up, down as I tried to navigate and figure out how to, you know, choose me. At the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to. And there was a defining moment about 5 years ago where it was like, okay, this you're not going to continue this fight for the rest of your life. Like there's no way that you are about to enter your 40s, the decade where you turn 40. The year that I turn 40 is the one that turns next year. There's no way that I'm going to still be struggling with the same stuff I was struggling with when I was 11 years old.
Already 11
years old when I turned 40. Like that, no, it's not going to happen. So I had a very, very profound kind of come to Jesus moment where I was like, something has to change. So there was 2 moments of decision, I think, in my process. One coming from a much more empowered place than the other.
Right. Wow. Okay, so you find the inspiration to do this, then you say you did, you know, achieve your goal of losing 100 pounds. How did you do it? I'm sure people who are listening to this conversation, that's probably like, okay, we hear all the inspirational stuff or whatever. How did you lose 100 pounds, Sabrina? Tell us.
Well, I almost hate sharing that part of the story because it's not a way that I would recommend to any single human being on this planet, like at all. I call it a really ugly win because I developed an eating disorder during that process. I tried all the diets, any diet you can imagine, I've done it. Any weight loss pill you can speak of, I've tried it.
Wow.
It was not good. I started with the Atkins diet, did cabbage soup, did eating nothing but baked potatoes. Yes, that's a real diet. Do like all the fad things, because again, it came from that place of desperation. Like I need to lose weight now. I need to be at my goal weight yesterday. It was very much that.
By any means necessary.
By any means necessary, right? And so the weight would come off a bit and then come on a bit, come up. And I just developed a lot of binge eating disordered, binge eating disorders, disordered eating in and of itself. And I developed bulimia, which is something that I still fight to this day. So how it happened, it's not something I would recommend,
Of course.
but it really is that second defining moment about 5 years ago. That's kind of what I've done since then, has been how I coach a lot of my clients to approach their process. And it's a much more holistic,
right. So before we get on just, the holistic part of it, I mean, I think it's important that even though, we may not want to talk about it, and even though it may be negative, I think it's something that we need to make sure, especially young women, understand. You don't want to go down that path. You don't feel, even though you lost 100 pounds, you don't feel good about it, right? All the eating disorders that physiologically what you're putting your body through. I think young women need to hear these stories and hear the positive side of it that we're going to talk about. But would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, because I was doing a kind of mindset coaching session with my client community last week, and I asked them the question of what is your fear when it comes to actually showing up and doing the things you need to do to get to the goal you have. What is the thing that stops you from doing it?
Right.
And one of them just answered in such a perfect example of what we're talking about. She said, I'm afraid that I'm going to do all this work and deny myself all these foods and actions and stuff that are my comfort things, and I'm still going to hate myself.
Oh, wow.
And it brought a tear to my eye, because that was my exact.
Just the thought of it, I'm getting goosebumps just to feel like, there's a woman out there who feels and thinks that way about themselves.
That was exactly where I found myself. Is I lost 100 pounds. I did all the negative behaviors, but all the negative behaviors got me to the place where I looked at the scale and saw the number that was supposed to define me and make me feel incredible and whatever, and I still hated the person that I was.
Like crap. Yeah. And that is not the way to go, for any person, and for mainly women, because we struggle differently with weight than men do. Our hormones are all over the place. The way we think, it's, slightly different. We probably stress about things a little bit more, and we have all these things. We carry the children into the world, and, all this. So we're supposed to be the nurturers and all of these things, right? It's just tough to know that there are a lot of young women out there who had the same struggles as you did, Sabrina. And maybe one person is listening that may say, you know what, I have been there. I've been where Sabrina has been in those negative times and going through the eating disorders and the struggles and the self-hate and all of that. But you know what? She figured it out, and she found a holistic way of maintaining. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really boiled down to once I started to take care of my mental and emotional health, the weight took care of itself.
Awesome.
That was a really profound realization, was that when I stopped denying the attention, I found that the weight that I was carrying between my ears was so much more cumbersome than the excess weight that was on my body, and once I started to really delve into that and work to heal, work to kind of unravel what was happening, where did these stories of I don't belong, I don't matter, and you're not enough, where did that come from? Because I wasn't born with that, right?
None of us are born with that.
Any of that. It's learned somehow, it's taken on somehow. So really being courageous enough, I guess, because that is where a lot of people fall down, is they want the external result of the weight loss and all of that, but they're too afraid to dive into the mental stuff, whether there's traumas that have happened, there's stuff that needs to be healed that they just don't want to look at, which I totally understand. I think everyone has to get to that place by themselves where, how it's interfering with your quality of life now is so profound that you do, the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of making that change, and everyone gets to that place for themselves. But it was that process of dealing with my mental and emotional health. And once I got there, the actions that were causing me to do this in my way were able cease. I was able to get control of my relationship with food. I was able to get control of the, you know, binge eating tendencies and the bulimic actions. And I say, like, I still struggle with bulimia to this day, because I think something like that never truly leaves you. You just find ways of coping. And so it really was that deep dive into the mental and emotional upheaval that gave me the ability to take new actions, and so my health improved from there.
So what I hear you say is you start with the mental aspect of it you have to pay attention to that and fix that before the physical aspect of it will happen.
Well, I think they go kind of hand. You can do them on a parallel kind of course.
Got it. Okay.
Because I work with my clients on, you know, establishing nutrition programming that is, you know, is specific to their goals and their preferences, establishing exercise prescription that, you know, fits them and what they enjoy, because that, you know, consistency is the key. And then really focusing on, you know, their sleep quality, focusing on how we manage stress. And because a lot of that, the answers to that question, how do you manage stress, will highlight the negative behaviors that we engage in terms of comfort eating and, you know, drinking to excess and things like that. And so from that place of kind of unraveling where these negative behaviors come from, it immediately goes into what is happening up here. So it becomes kind of this very involved situation where it's not like stage 1, deal with the mental health, stage 2, blah, blah, blah. It has to happen in tandem.
It's overall health that you can work on in conjunction with each other. You don't have to do this and then do that and then do that. It all plays a role all at once together. Oh, perfect. That makes perfect sense. And to me, it seems like that's the healthier way of doing it, because while you're over here just focusing on mental, I mean, your physical could be getting worse, right?
Exactly. And you can't do that when you're still engaging in these negative behaviors.
That's right.
You know? It doesn't work. And so I think it's very important to have this, rather than it being like a linear kind of stage-based approach, having this very cyclical, fluid attention to what is happening, because the ultimate goal is that you're changing your lifestyle. There's a lifestyle transformation that is happening, because it's not just about, you know, we do these things until we see that number
and then we stop.
It's we do these things because we care about the person that we are, and we want to be the very best version of ourselves. And so it's changes that we're making for a lifetime,
and be able to sustain it for the rest of your life, right? Because how you lost the weight, that is not sustainable, but how you're able to maintain it these last few years, that you can carry on as a lifestyle, right? So would you attribute your weight loss mainly to your nutrition or the exercise aspect of it? As you know, I am a personal trainer, fitness nutrition specialist or whatever. Like, I get a lot of people who will want to focus on one. I got to go run 10 miles a day and, you know, what have you. What do you think, if you would have to choose one, and probably from your personal experiences, which one would you think probably overweigh the other just a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm the exercise person. Like, people know me as the sweat queen because I love to work out. Like, it's my jam. But nutrition, you know, like if you just think of it logically, you work out maybe an hour a day, right? What are you doing for the other 23 hours of the day?
Yes, true.
You know, so it's nutrition is like, honestly, stress management and really focusing on your quality of sleep are the like top health kind of focus points.
I agree.
But when it comes to nutrition or exercise, nutrition has to be the primary focus. It just has to. When you think about that ratio just by itself in terms of 24 hours in your day, nutrition is the key. And that is the reason, in my belief, that so many women especially struggle so much, is because, just like we were saying, there are cultural things that have tie-ins with nutrition. There's food is at every single celebration known to man. Food is where we soothe. It's where we commiserate. If we've had a bad day, we eat. If we've had a great day, we eat.
That's right. Yes.
We're mourning something. We
That's
eat.
right.
Celebrating something. We
It's
eat.
so true, girl.
You know,
one day we eat. Someone get married, we eat. Someone's born, we eat. Yes, all of that. That is so true.
It's everywhere.
That's right. That's right.
So
We don't go out for a run to celebrate someone's death.
No. you know?
Hey, we
So
need to
it's
start
like,
that, Sabrina. We need to start that,
maybe
girl.
we do.
It's
Maybe
the
we do a
workout funeral or the workout wedding.
yeah. Yes, could you imagine? But it's that I think, and a lot of the time, because I work with a lot of women that have disordered eating habits, whether that's a negative relationship with food or they have binge eating disorders, things like that. And that's the reason the struggle is so large, because it's not like an alcoholic or drug addict where they can just eliminate, you know. And I say just in, you know, I don't
Right,
know,
of course.
but in terms of that's the goal, is complete abstinence. We can't abstain from eating.
No, right.
You know?
We need it. It's an essential part of life.
And so that's where the struggle lies, is because it's, especially like I considered myself at that point in my life to have a food addiction. And so when it comes to healing from that, it's an incredibly convoluted, difficult thing to do, because abstinence isn't an option.
Right,
you know
right.
And so it's finding a positive relationship with this source of pain in a lot of people's experience, and rewriting the story. And that's where the struggle comes from in my experience personally, as well as coaching the women that I do.
Right. So weight loss is kind of it's a philosophy of mine. Weight loss and weight gain happens in the kitchen or in the dining room table or on your plate, right? And studies there's a plethora of studies out there to prove that, right? Exercise will help you maintain that weight loss. Exercise is more for physique, you know, you want your body to look a certain way, but for weight loss, it happens in the kitchen. It happens at, you know, on your plate. And here is someone, for those of you guys who are listening to this, you know, Sabrina is a true testament of that, right? Right, Sabrina?
Yeah. My kind of thought process is, exercise will give you the body you want. Will help you shape the body you have, but it's nutrition that's going to give you the body you want.
That's right. So as we wrap up here, a couple of other questions, Sabrina. Just kind of give us like a quick synopsis as to what your diet look like today. Like for me, and I'll give you an example of what I mean. I am a carbohydrate girl. Like I eat carbohydrate. That's just me and who I am, right? But I choose my carbohydrates wisely. I eat a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and seeds and grains and, you know, so forth. And, you know, I don't eat meat or whatever, but I'm not encouraging anyone to be a pescatarian like I am. I eat seafood, but just kind of tell us, like, how do you sustain and maintain your weight loss kind of in, you know, your diet, your everyday living?
And I love that you shared yours, because I think it's so important to underwrite this by saying there's a way that suits everybody. There's not one way to be, right? Because how you eat is probably the complete opposite.
Oh wow.
In terms of, I say I'm low carb, I'm not really, because vegetables are carbohydrates and the majority of my diet is plant-based. But I don't eat grains. I'm very low on like starches, very low on I don't consume processed carbohydrates for the most part, dairy free. But I do have a higher fat intake. It's not as high as keto, because we're not even going to talk about that. But when it comes to the standard American diet, kind of, you know, standard recommendations, I do eat a higher fat diet than most. And I eat some animal protein. It's not a huge part of my diet. Like I said, I'm predominantly plant-based. And I intermittently fast. So for me, finding fasting was a godsend. It really was. And
how long have you been doing that?
Just over 4 years. It was 4 years in April since the first time I kind of dove into fasting, and educating myself a ton in those 4 years about the efficacy of it. Yeah. And I think that's huge in general. You know, whatever nutrition plan you try, or you decide that you want to go down the path of having that be your lifestyle, I think it's incredibly important to be educated about why you're doing that in order to continue to do it. Because I feel like when we understand what is happening when we eat in a particular way, then it makes it much easier for us to maintain that process.
Right, amazing. But like you said, we eat very differently, but we find what works for us. We educate ourselves on what works for us, and then we can share that with you guys, whoever's listening or watching this podcast. And you maybe try my way, try her way, and see what works for you. There's no one size fit all as it comes to nutrition and weight loss. And I will tell you that as a profession in the field, and Sabrina will tell you that as someone who's a profession in the field and has lived it and experienced it. You have to feel things out and try things out, right? There's no one way fits all. But I mean, this has been an amazing conversation, Sabrina. You are a wealth of information. And, you know, as a health coach, I am sure your clients just appreciate the fact, one, that you have been there, right? So you have experienced it. You have spent the time to educate yourself on what you're telling them, which kind of leads to my final question. I have two nieces, and one of them is biracial. And just, you know, it's something that I think about just for young women in general, but for me more personally, my two nieces growing up, and, you know, the one that's biracial that may have a little bit more struggles, you know, than my other niece. What would you tell a young lady who may be at that age? She's around the age that you started having these issues, my older niece. What would you tell her? What advice would you have for her to get through something like what you've been through?
I honestly, I think back to what I needed to hear then, like in a perfect world, if I was receiving the positive messaging in my home that I needed to kind of counteract what was happening outside, what I needed to hear. And it really was having the capacity to believe that anything I want is possible for me.
Yes.
And that goes to any aspect of life, how I view myself, what career I want, what relationships I want, how I want to be treated, how I treat others. Like that goes across the board. And I think it's a really important message for young women to have, that they need to have the capacity to believe that anything they want is possible for them.
Yes, the sky's the limit, you know, for, you know, hopefully we can reach one person, one young lady, one young girl who, you know, may just feel like they're going through that or whatever. If you want to live a healthier life, you can aspire for that, dream big. If you want to look a certain way, aspire for that, dream big. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for this conversation. I'm sure your clients just totally adore you. I mean, your smile just brightens, like that laugh right there just brightens my morning. I appreciate that so much. So you and I met on Instagram. That's how we connected. The power of social media is, you know, what I always talk about, and it seemed like that's one of the places that you have been growing your health coaching business. But tell us about that and where people can find you, and, you know, if there's a young lady who's going through some of the struggles that you've been in, can they reach out to you and how?
Yeah, 100%. I like my social media platforms are where I love to hang out and spend my time. And there's a lot of not great things about social media, but honestly, the beautiful thing about that is the ability to reach so many people that are not in your immediate circle. And I just love it. So I hang out a lot on my social media. On Instagram, I'm _ inspire Sabrina. On Facebook, Inspire Sabrina. And I do have a YouTube channel as well. Again, Inspire Sabrina. So everything's pretty much the same. You can come find me and we can chat, and my DMs are always open. I'm super kind of into connecting with women on these platforms, because I think, just like you've been saying this whole time, if one person hears the message and uses it to transform their life, like, job done, I can die happy.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so very much, Sabrina. And this conversation is recorded for YouTube. So if for those of you guys who want to look at our beautiful faces while we have this conversation, yes, you can catch us on YouTube. Otherwise, you can find me on social media as well. Barrett Fitness Enterprise is on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all these beautiful places. But you guys go check out Sabrina. I mean, she's just a wealth of information. And like she said, she responds to you. Like, we're communicating on Instagram. We don't need each other's cell phone number because we communicate with each other. That's how we connect. And I just love this girl power that we have going on, inspiring other young ladies, whatever struggle, physiological, mental, whatever struggles, you know, reach out to one of us. You know, I've interviewed people with just a plethora of whatever struggle it is, whatever journey, whatever story. And these women are just open to sharing their story and helping someone else who may be going through the same thing. So thank you so kindly, Sabrina, for this conversation. And you guys, you can, again, find me anywhere on the social media platforms, Barrett Fitness Enterprises. Thank you, Sabrina, for this conversation. Until next time, Sabrina and I, we are out.